Hello YouTube, how y'all doing today? Well, me, I finally get to help out a good friend of mine. You might have seen him somewhere on this channel before. He's the one that owns that Chevelle convertible with the 454 in it. But he called me up the other day, or he was just talking to me the other day, and he says, yeah, the AC guy, I'm gonna have to call him over there, come look at my house. My unit ain't working. I said, man, I wish you would have let me know something. Could have saved you some money. He said, well, I've already called him, yada yada yada. So then he calls me back after he goes to meet the guy over here at his house, and he says, man, that guy's gonna charge me $675 plus tax. I said, well, what did he say was wrong with it? He said, the motor went out in the unit upstairs. I said, yeah, that's about the going rate for somebody out of the phone book for a good person that you reuse all the time, maybe 150 less, you know, as a consistent customer. It just depends. So anyway, I decided that I would shoot this video for y'all. I have 27 years experience in the heating and air conditioning field, but I don't like doing that no more. One of the reasons why I don't do it no more is because of the hot heat in the attic, and I had a heat stroke in the attic due to the fact that I was hard-headed and stubborn. They sent me out with somebody that was new to the company, and everything he was doing in the attic I was having to stop him on. The boss shows up at the house when I was employed doing heating and air. He shows up at the house, says, look, how come this job ain't done? I said, well, dude, I said, all the stuff that this dude said that he has 5 years experience of doing, he ain't very good at doing. He says, man, just get it done, man. You're already late for another appointment. So I tell the hand outside, I go downstairs and I talk to my helper. I tell him, hey man, just bring the water cooler up in the attic, and you just wait down here in the truck and clean up all this mess and get the truck loaded. I'll be done in a second. Well, he brings me the water cooler with no water in it. And instead of doing the right thing and getting down out of the attic and going and get some water, I decided to push myself an extra 30-40 minutes in the attic with no water. And then I had a little heat stroke. But anyway, here's it goes. This is a gas furnace. And usually on most furnaces, the gas is above the squirrel cage. The blower motor is always right beside the return air, and the return air is the ones that have the big lines coming into it, 14, 16, and 18 inch duct. This one looks like it only has one return air duct. Some of them have multiple. Some of them have a return air in each room, and we won't go into that theory, but this one obviously has one return air. So on the end of this is the bottom unit. See the multiples coming out there? The squirrel cage is going to be located in here. And yes, I've already took it out because I didn't have the time yesterday, and I didn't have my phone with me, and I had some other things on my phone I had to get rid of before I could shoot this video for you. But a squirrel cage is pretty much really easy to change out. The motor inside the squirrel cage, that's slang. That's just what I've always called it, a squirrel cage, because it looks like a squirrel cage, you know, like a little hamster's roll in it. You know, and they get exercise with it. That's exactly what it looks like, and it's got a motor in it. Well, I diagnosed it, same as the other guy, and found that it's got a bad motor, because I put direct power to the motor, which on a gas furnace and a 110 motor, if you connect the white wire to your neutral wire on a plug, which is, you can take your plug and cut it off of a lamp or something for people that don't have a field piece testing device, and you can hook up the white wire, and I'll get down there with you and re-show you that too, but you can hook up the white wire, and then you have the option to hook up the red, the blue, the yellow, which is high, medium, and low, or black. It's high, medium low, or medium high. You know, there's different speeds. Each wire is a different speed. Black is your highest speed, I do believe. So anyway, you hook with the option of one of those wires, one of the other wires besides the white wire. You can only hook up one. Do not hook up any of the other colors together. It has to be a white and another color to test that motor. And then that's the way you diagnose it. Okay, let's try this again. My phone shut off because it told me, I thought it was due to the fact of low memory space. But the reason why it shut off is because it sensed high temperatures, and it's not going to shoot no videos in that hot. Hey, I'm sorry about that. My camera shut off. I thought it was due to low memory space, but obviously this phone is protected by a maximum temperature. It's not going to record if it's hot, so this phone is too hot to be in the attic. Kind of like me. It's too hot for me to be in that attic. That's why it's a sad tragedy, man, but when you push yourself past to the point and have one heat stroke, you can't never again take it to that further in it, you know. I guess I'll share a little bit more about it since I ain't walking in the attic and I can share with you, but didn't listen to the doctor. When I went to the doctor, told him I just felt like crap, I was fatigued, told him what happened on the job, and he told me, you're going to have to find another line of work. Well, I didn't listen to him. And went back to work and got on the job. It was hot as heck up there. I had plenty of water. I was juiced up, you know, make sure plenty of hydration, plenty of fluids in my body. And I lasted for maybe about 30 minutes, and I fell through the sheetrock and landed on the customer's coffee table. And he had his feet propped up on the coffee table. And when I landed with his feet, like my elbow kind of like went around his foot, and I landed in the middle of the coffee table. And after all the sheetrock quit falling, man, I says, oh, I looked up and I said, oh my God, you're sealing. And he says, F that, bro. First he spit out all this, he was chewing, he had a mouthful of food, he spit all over me with the sandwich. Blew the sandwich all over the top of me, on my face. I had sandwich particles on my face. He says, F that, bro. Call an ambulance. Honey, call an ambulance. He started freaking out. So I wound up back in the hospital. And they told me, look, you need to listen to your primary care doctor when he told you, do not be putting yourself in those extreme conditions again. So I got to be very careful. Maybe that's a good thing I got my phone. It got me out of the attic. Anyway, so in that cavity that I showed you up there on a furnace, on the return end, you're going to find the squirrel cage. On a gas furnace, it's going to be 110 motor. Okay, and if you want, you can check it up there by hooking up, like I said, the white wire and one of the colored wires, which is going to be a red, a yellow, a black, or a blue. Your brown wires most of the time are the wires that hook to your capacitor, and if the capacitor is bad, what I'm saying is, if you don't have a field piece and you can't check your capacitor, it looks like this. It looks like this. Sometimes that's all you need to replace when the motor quits running. A good sign that it might be the capacitor is the motor still makes a humming noise, and you can actually spin this, you can actually reach in that, you can actually reach inside of here with it plugged in. I know it's a little dangerous, you know, but if it's just sitting still, you can actually take this and flick your hands back like that and get that squirrel cage turning. Be very careful. Don't stick your hands in there if it's turning at all, you know. You can hold your hand on it and have someone plug the power in, and then when you give it a boost and like kind of like push starting a Harley, you know, gets it moving. And if it starts to run for a little while and turns, then that's a good sign that it's the capacitor. And you can take this capacitor and you can have it checked. You can go to heating and air conditioning places, you know, that serve the public. And, you know, when I worked at a lot of heating and air conditioning companies, some of the companies that I worked for didn't much care for the customers coming in trying to fix it themselves, and they'd run them out the door. Some of my employers that I worked for in my past, they would help the customer. They would check their capacitor. They would check their motor for them. And then they would sell them a new motor and let them go home and put it back together. And that's what this video is about. Do it yourself. So that's the story, you know. That's how you cheat the system and make it a little bit easier off and cheaper on you. When you pull the squirrel cage out of the unit, it's going to have 2 holes, most of them. It's got 2 holes. And when you pull it out and look at it, man, my camera is blurry. Probably because it's got sweat all over it. Let me fix that. Nope. That's a little better. Yeah. Okay. You're going to be looking at the squirrel cage, and this is going to be bolted up. If the unit sits up and down, this is going to be blowing straight up in the air. If your unit is in a closet. If it's up in the attic and it's turned sideways, this squirrel cage is going to be facing that away, blowing air into the heat exchanger or the heat coils on an electric unit. And there's going to be 2 screws. You take that out, and then you unplug the wires. Okay? Before you unplug the wires, you're going to see a motherboard in there. All the newer units, all the older units with relays and crap like that are pretty much gone. They're all motherboards. It's all computer generated now. So you're going to see a motherboard in there where all these wires look like a little electronic board. That's called the motherboard of your furnace, or your if it's electric air handler, it's going to be electric air handler. If it's a gas furnace, it's been called your gas furnace. But anyway, where was I at? Anyway, you're going to take those 2 wires out, and before you go to unplugging your wires off of that motherboard, it's a good idea, just because unless you want to have to take a class on reading wiring diagrams and schematics, or you want to have to learn about wiring and how to hook one of these things up, it's just better if you take a picture of that motherboard and see where all those wires are plugged in. Take a picture of it, so when you go get your new motor, you can plug all those wires back into your motherboard. I wish I was up there so I could show you the motherboard, but my phone's going to get too hot and it's going to cut off again. Wonder if it would, I might just take some pictures. That's what I'll do. I'll take pictures and I'll put it on the end of this video, because it'll probably let me take pictures, because it's not on running. It'll let me take pictures, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, before you unplug your motor from that unit and slide this squirrel cage out, this squirrel cage is going to slide to you like this after you remove those screws. Sometimes some of them have a little stand down here on the bottom. It's a little screw, and it kind of helps support the bottom of it. But most of them are slide out. They're really easy to pull out. And then once you get the motor out, the squirrel cage completely out, you're going to turn the motor on one side, the side that you're going to see the shaft. And your shaft is going to have that little screw on it. You loosen this screw. It's a box screw. You loosen that screw, and if your shaft has any rust on it at all, you need to oil it up. Do not beat on that shaft. It will mushroom the end of it and you'll never get it off. Best way to do it is get some PB Blast or WD-40 and let it soak, and take some emery cloth or some sandpaper and sand that shaft down really smooth. Get it nice and clean so you can slide the shaft out of that motor. Then after you get the motor out, you're going to see the motor, it's going to be sitting, it's going to have these on it. You're going to take these screws out. And then of course, you take these screws out right here. Most of the time there's 3, sometimes there are 4. Most of the time it's 3, sometimes there is 4. Then once you get these 3 bolts out, you're going to pull it out. And this is the new motor already. You're going to pull it out, and this thing is going to be on this motor like this. So you're going to pull it out, and this thing is going to be in the center down here on this. And to get that off, you loosen these nuts and these bolts. Most of them are all the same. You loosen it and it unclamps. Some motors you can't remove those. The motors come with those fixed on them, but I'm pretty sure nowadays that most of these comes with a universal mount. You take these 2 screws loose, and then this slides off. It's going to slide off through the front because your wires are on the back. Like so. Okay. It's important, let me make sure I'm still rolling. It's important that you center this motor in the position of this squirrel cage. When you put them back together, that squirrel cage, your fan itself, the fan blades, whatever you want to call it, squirrel cage, has to have the same amount of distance on each side because you do not want it rubbing. If you come across a situation to where these screws are too rusted and this mount is not holding tightly on that motor, you might have to buy you a new mount. If you come across a situation to where these screw holes are stripped out, you're going to have to find a way to get some nuts on the back of that and make sure that this mount has your rubber. Make sure that mount has rubber garments on it because the motor does have a little vibration. If you don't have the motor grommets new and are in good condition, what it's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of motor noise and rattling. It start rattling on you, making a lot of noise, and which is really irritating. So once you've got the motor reinstalled in the system, I mean in this box, in the squirrel cage, like I said, you got to make sure that it's perfectly in the middle. Do adjustments however you need to do the adjustments and make sure that's right. Make sure this motor is secure and solid. Also, when you replace your motor, it's a good idea to have a new capacitor that fits, that is the right capacitor for your motor. And you can look on here, and I'm not going to try to get so close up with this camera because I'm blind as a bat right now and can hardly read that anyway, and I don't have my glasses on, but it'll tell you the numbers on this capacitor. See if I can get it. These numbers right here. It'll tell you on this wiring diagram up here what size capacitor to use. And when you buy your motor, or wherever you get your motor, here in Fort Worth, you can actually go to a place that sells to the general public. The parts are a lot higher. Sometimes you can go to an air conditioner service repair place, you know, somebody that takes care of people and services their unit and fixes it and maintenance, you know, they maintenance your unit, that kind of serviceman, AC service tech, whatever. Sometimes you can go to the company and they will sell you a motor off the shelf at their business. Sometimes it might cost a little cheaper. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes they won't sell it to you at all because, you know, some people are just greedy and they'd rather, well, if you're not going to let me fix it and bend you over the barrel, then they're not going to do it at all. And that's the purpose of this video. I'm trying to save somebody some money. So you don't call an AC guy to come out here and service your unit. He winds up servicing your old lady instead and then bends you over the barrel and charges you money on top of that. That's just a joke. So I'm going to get off here and get this thing all back together. And then, okay, once you get your motor back in and your brackets back on, it should look like this. This reverses these two wires right here. This reverses which way your motor turns. If you want to check it out before you get the unit up in your attic, you can hook up the white wire and just say your blue wire or any of the other colors besides brown. Your browns hook to your capacitor. And by the way, let me share this with y'all. Before you touch this capacitor or attempt to take the wires off this capacitor, make sure you have some rubber gloves on or you got a screwdriver that's insulated and you arc between these two terminals here. Like so. You touch those two terminals after the power shut off and after you got the squirrel cage out of the furnace, or just completely after the power shut off. You arc these two terminals together on this capacitor, because if you don't, the whole point of a capacitor is it stores, how can I explain it to where y'all can understand? It stores energy, and when the unit is when that motor is first turned on, it boosts it and it gives it its blast that it needs to have to run. It doesn't struggle to run that away. It gives the motor what it needs as it runs. But most of all, it's for that first when you turn on your unit, because you know the motor is going to drag a lot of current. And that's why I was explaining earlier in this video that sometimes it's not your motor that's bad. Sometimes your motor just gets overheated and all this area, all these fins right here, will get clogged. If you have pets in the house, it will get clogged with hair. Or if you don't change your filter, it'll get hair in there. Or if your unit has leaks around it, or if it just has leaks in general around your unit and it's bypassing the filter, you'll get hair or you'll get dust clogged up in there. This one looks pretty clean. The man, which is my friend, my buddy, he collects classic cars. I can't wait to show you the one out in the garage. That's a surprise for y'all. But he keeps his filters changed regularly, and I can tell that he does because there is no dust absolutely hardly anywhere on this squirrel cage. Sometimes when I would pull these squirrel cages out, they would be so full of dust. And when there's dust on them fins, it restricts the air carrying through those fins, which makes your unit has to struggle harder, which also pulls less air. It pushes less air through your coils. If you don't have the right amount of airflow going through your coils on your unit, it's going to freeze up because it's not getting enough airflow over the coils. A lot of people that do service calls, they'll get lazy on you and they'll go out there and throw their gauges on the unit and they'll say, hey, you need more Freon. Well, make sure that when a service tech comes out to your house that they go wherever the inside unit is, whether it's in the attic, whether it's in a closet, and they check and make sure your filter is clean. And then ask them to check and make sure the motor's running correctly before they try to pump your system with more Freon. Because if it's not getting good airflow across the coils, or make sure the coil isn't dirty. If they just try to subdue your system and pump more Freon in the system, yeah, that's a temporary fix. It'll work. But what they really need to do is do their job right and quit being lazy, even no matter how many calls they've been on that day, or if they're in a hurry, they will try to fix you temporarily, just put more Freon in your system and tell you they're going to be back in a little while. And then they'll charge you for that call, plus another one when they come back later. There's lots of things that I could teach y'all about an air conditioning unit, but the problem is I can't go in pneumatics no more, like I said, because I've had a heat stroke, and that broke my heart when I had to quit doing heating and air. It literally floored me that I made that mistake and quit sweating in an attic. And I don't know why I was so stupid not to listen. I just thought, well, I'm tough, you know, I'm macho, I can do this. And especially when you get up on there in the years, like I think it was 45 is when it happened. That's when I had my heat stroke, and that's when all hell broke loose. Once you have your first one, the doctors will tell you you can't go back to that area with that much heat. Your body will not let you do it. You're broken from then on, you know. It's what my doctor has told me. First heat stroke, when you come across, you might as well find something else to do to where you ain't, or watch it, you know. Watch yourself in the heat. Keep hydrated. Don't push yourself so long. You got to pay attention to your body when it gives you these signs. And if you stop sweating, get the hell out of the attic for real. Anyway, once you get it all bolted in and secure, take your hand and freely spin it. See how there's the same on each side? You got the same amount of space on each side. Also, when you spin it, you see how the squirrel cage right here doesn't wobble? Sometimes the squirrel cages will start falling apart and they'll vibrate and shake. And if you got a unit that goes when it runs, that means your squirrel cage is probably loose, your motor brackets are loose, or the fan part, those fins itself are coming loose from the welds. Anyways, the rotation is next. Most of the time it comes factory with it set to be pushing the air the right way. But the way I go about it, before I get up there and waste any time putting it all the way back in there and have to fight the wires after it's already in, is I put power to these two, the black and the white. And this is on a 110. This is on a 110 motor, not 220. You put power like on your plugs, not your third prong, you know, like your third prong on your plug outlet on your wall. You only hook it like a lamp or something, and you just hook them up and you plug them in. And if this motor comes on and it blows out, it blows the air out this way, that means that you're good. That means your motor is turning the right direction. If it doesn't blow out that hole and it's spinning fine and everything, then that means you need to take and swap these two wires out here. When you do that, it reverses the rotation of your motor. Okay? Also, when you go to get your motor replaced, make sure it matches. The motor size can be a little bit, they can differ, different brands, different sizes of the depth of the motor and everything, but make sure the horsepower is the same, make sure the RPMs are the same, make sure all the specs on that motor is exactly like the one that you're taking out of there, because if you don't, it could be bad trouble for you. The motor could be spinning too fast. It just won't fit in that unit. It's just a situation where you want to follow the rules in that area. It could also burn out other parts in your air conditioner system, like the motherboard, if it draws too many amps and that system ain't designed to draw that many amps. That's just what I've been told. I mean, everybody can leave their comments down here below and leave some extra comments if I've left anything out. But I'm fixing to go back up there and slide this thing back in there. And I'll try to get a lot of pictures for you so you can see through the pictures, because it won't let me shoot the video. It cuts me off. It says my camera's too hot. Go figure. I got I got a sissy ass camera, and I'm a sissy too. Neither one of us can stay in the damn attic that long. Anyway, I'll cut the camera back on in a minute, and maybe let it. Well, I think this is the end of the video. I didn't have time to shoot no footage up there, man. I just couldn't. I was having to work 30, 45 seconds a minute and come back down. Couldn't do it. I guess that's just what it is, you know. That's why I had to really quit doing heating and air, you know. It's just one of them things. That and my phone's going dead. But man, it is hot in them attics. I can teach people with a vlog, but it's much easier just to teach people when you're looking at something, you know, and trying to teach them. But it went good as cake, man. I mean, I got up there, I took my picture before I did it, you know. I put all my wires back on where the picture showed me where they went. Turned it back on. The unit had to reset itself. Sometimes the units, they have to reset themselves. They go through a procedure and the heat strips will come on, but even if they don't come on and it doesn't go through a self-check procedure, it's better if when you put that fan in and when you get the unit running, we were told as, you know, service techs to make sure the heat comes on, make sure the air conditioner comes on, make sure it cycles on and off, make sure the drain pan's cleaned out, make sure there ain't no trash in the PVC lines, make sure the area's, you know, cleaned up if we were doing repairs. Make sure all your wires are protected. If there's any insulator, if there's any wires going through the unit or anywhere at all where wires go through some sheet metal, you got to have a protector there, or some press tape, or cork tape. You can buy cork tape or rubber tape, and you got to make sure those wires, all the wires going through that unit, are insulated, because it'll short out on that unit due to the vibrations. You know, sometimes it'll do that. Sometimes service techs will leave that crap, or installers even cheat, and I don't see how the inspectors even let it get by with that. That was been the case on a lot of them I come across, man. It's a short waiting to happen. It does nothing but blow the breaker or short out the motherboard, or just a lot of things that could go wrong if you don't insulate all your wires. But I'm going to get off here and let it go and shut it down. I hope I'm still rolling. Anyway, Limster out, man. Keeping it straight, keeping it real. Peace.